welcome to today's session on Civil 3D tips and tricks. My name is Mark Degner, and I work with AECOM and have been doing transportation engineering, site civil engineering, municipal engineering for almost 20 years now. And all that time, I've been pretty much with Autodesk products and land development or into Civil 3D. And along the way, there's been quite a few little tips and tricks that have helped to be more efficient. And that's what today's session is going to primarily be geared towards, is ways of helping to just make things a little bit quicker and maybe less of a headache for you, and ways to get monotonous tasks kind of combined into one. So with that, hopefully you have found the little additional presentation sheet that is fairly basic, and hopefully you can take notes along the way to personalize them and help you to kind of remember things as we go. So with that, let's jump into the session. And the first topic I'm going to try to cover is using Control and Shift to assist with some of the commands and how they can actually work within Civil 3D. At the first one we'll do is copy tabs. The way I used to, if I needed a tab copied, I'd come up to the move copy and create copy, hit OK. But I just realized there is a little bit more efficient way, that if you hold Control and you click on the tab name and you see a little blue arrow at the bottom left, drag and drop, you've now created copies. And you can even do that for multiple tabs. So however many tabs you want, it should then create a copy. One more time. Just got to double check that for the control part of it that it held. But as you can see, tabs get created really easy. Next one would be using Control to help to split down certain objects. And say, for instance, this big crazy object here, if I want to modify part of it, you can hold Control and select whatever particular segments you want. Then I'm going to hit delete here. So as you can see, all those particular sections that I had already set are gone, but the other items that I would want to keep are still there. So it kind of helps if you end up wanting a certain amount, everything. A good example might be part of an intersection, where if I wanted to modify this curve and get rid of those, and let's just say this curb and gutter should have been another 10 feet out. By getting rid of just that intersection, I keep both legs of the intersection, and I can just redo my fillet commands. Do those just in case needed. Hopefully everybody's found this one in the past, but doing snaps, temporary snaps. So I usually don't like to draw with my snaps on, just because the computer's always trying to figure out what I can snap to next. But if I'm doing a polyline or any other object that I'm drawing a line on, if you hold Control, or I think it's Shift, you can bring up your temporary snaps. And this is a one snap item, and you can just choose what you may want to have. And if you're going to go for the next line, you have to do the same Shift if you need snaps again. But just helps to not have snaps running all the time and always seeing things trying to get pulled into different directions. For fillet command, we zoom up here. Fillet command can be very helpful for many different things. Usually I've noticed that it does help if you have polylines on both of them. So this one's currently an arc. I can try to do a fillet command. Radius is, let me do something a little bit smaller, 20. But I click and it's probably going to it gives me the no option available. Let me turn this into a polyline. Now if I try the fillet command again, make that fillet bigger so we can see it. As you can see now, it works because it's been created into a polyline. Now, as you can see, I had a radius on that one. Now, if you want to make this just a point with no radius, if you actually hold Shift, as you can see, it becomes a point where the two lines will connect. If you release Shift, go back to being an arc with shift, without shift. So just something that I had learned from Lynn Allen years ago, and something that's been very helpful. Shift during trim and extend. Sometimes you can do this without, I'm going to go into the extend command. And what the shift will do is allow you to do the opposite for these particular items. So I'm going to select my green line as my either extend or trim line. I'm going to right click once, and then now I can actually extend these, but now I'm going to hold shift and I'm actually going to trim the other ones, all in the same command. And if I do trim, same scenario, just to show you, if I hold shift, I can extend or trim, hold shift. It can be very helpful instead of going in and out of commands constantly, especially when you're doing a lot of cleanup. Sometimes something else I want to show you over in tool space for shift, if you're wanting to show a lot of surfaces, if you highlight them all and hold shift, great way that if you know that you want to turn something on to display, or vice versa. Sometimes your drawing is cluttered and you have a bunch of surfaces. You can select whichever ones you want, control or shift, and you can hold that shift and then you can change the display. Works same for like alignments too. Holding shift, I can make changes. Shift can also help you to unselect items. I come down here. Let's just say I selected all 4 of these lines, but I didn't want this middle one. If you hold shift, it will remove that from your group. So especially if you're doing like surface, like this is a big surface or topo file. If I'm doing a bunch of edits and you get so far along with all these different items, but now you realize you didn't need these 2, holding shift at least allows you to get rid of them instead of starting from scratch. That kind of wraps up the shift and control keys that are, there's more, but and feel free to share in the chat if you do have some other ones that you know about, because they are really helpful and can save some time. Let's move on to drawing cleanup or some other tools like that. First one is I want to get to is map trim. It's a handy way that, especially if you're dealing with surfaces or staging plans, that say for like this big mapping file, I needed to chop out an area and make a hole, or vice versa. You have this huge file and I only want to keep a smaller area. Well, map trim can help you with that. So I'm going to start the command map trim. With or without a boundary. I created my own boundary, but you could also define your own here. Then you can select what items you want to trim. Either you can select manually if you need that. I usually just go to automatic unless you have a different reason to be more specific. Trim inside, trim outside. I'm going to trim the inside just so I can create a hole that, let's just say I got brand new survey and I just want this gone so I can easily merge in my other stuff. That's one way to use this. At the bottom, you can see whether or not you want to trim, delete. I usually leave it as ignore for items that are not able to be trimmed. Those could include things like database files. So your survey data figures or survey figures, some of those won't probably trim. There might be some other 3-dimensional things that might not be able to trim, but you'll be able to see whatever can't be done. I usually leave it as ignore so then I can adjust later on. I'm gonna hit OK. And that is now if you want to call it a hole in my surface, I can bring in other stuff. That I'm going to delete this box for the moment. I'm going to do quite a few commands. I'm going to show you something a little bit later on. Uh, Next thing I'm going to cover is line work shrink wrap. If you end up having a couple different boundaries that are not fully closed, and sometimes it's just hard to get all your line work to always be perfect, line work shrink wrap is a great way that can help you to have something that's not exactly perfect, but you can still get boundaries. So I did line work shrink wrap. You can select one item, you can select many different items, and if they overlap, it's going to take the outer boundary of everything. Ones that don't overlap, you're going to have two different boundaries. And this is where that used to be gapped and now close that in for me. So helpful if you're doing quantities, if you're just trying to hatch something for display purposes, great way to just skip having to edit everything just to make it perfect. Boundary command, you can also do something kind of similar, but it doesn't. You're clicking on an inside and you have to have more closed perimeter to have that actually work. Moving on to dash purge. Probably everybody has always covered this one. I won't say much about it, but it is purge on steroids. So you can get rid of a lot of different things. And the big one is always registration apps, behind the scenes, bloated files that could really slow down your program. And even though you're not specifically loading them, when you have templates or other things, a lot of times your drawing can get a lot of these in. And this is one great way to get rid of some of those items or even unused styles. A lot of times I'll just do all to get rid of everything. If you do that and you end up needing some of your, either if some line types got purged or styles got purged, you might have to just go back to your original templates and pull in some of those styles. To go along with after you do an purge, I like to do audit as well and to fix things, or at least to spot check. In this case, I had a really old mapping file and there were some older blocks, and approximately 27 items were looked at. In this case, some of them were repaired. Other times they may just be ignored because it's not something that the computer deems necessary. A lot of these were blocks from, I think this is like a 2016 original file, so it's old. But audit can really help to keep a drawing more healthy and, if you want to say, stable. Command I'm just going to mention is overkill. If you have imported parcels or other things where you could have overlapping lines, overkill can be a good command to help to filter down and help to eliminate lines that overlap each other. And there's ways to either just delete the segment that overlaps, a few things like that, but keep that one in mind. Next command, rename block. Or rename, I'm sorry, just rename is the one. I usually use it for blocks. In doing so, if you have sometimes I've inserted an XREF into a drawing, and when you insert an XREF, that now becomes a block within your drawing. And if you ever needed to go back to re-XREF a file, if it's labeled as a block in your drawing, you can't do it. It's going to give you a warning, and it's hard to figure out why. But if you can't purge that XREF, one thing you could do is rename it. Or if you have other reasons to rename, let's just say barn. My old name is barn, but for some reason I want to either bring in something else or I just wanted the name to be changed. Barn 2. So I just rename that block. And when I come in to show you the blocks, it's no longer all caps barn, it's barn 2. So we just renamed it. Any entity in this drawing, whether that's in the drawing or just in the available blocks for this drawing, it's now renamed. And as you can see, there are different styles that you can do. So it also might help that if you're trying to make something a custom style or line type or layer, you do have some additional options, especially if you're using reference managers. This is a way to kind of help out. Moving on, W block. This mapping file itself I had used W block on it when it came from a bunch of different surveys and other things. The size of this particular mapping file for all of this line work is a little under 4 meg. I'm sorry, a little under 8 meg, 7.5. When I first had gotten my hands on this file years ago, it had survey figures, 3D stuff. I chose to make it flattened down in 2D, and I was able to take like an 80 meg file down to under 8 megs, which then helps when you're referencing this into all your other design files, plan sheets, if that's what you're doing is making PDFs for your PS&E type submittals. The smaller the reference files, a lot of times you can see a big gain in how fast things work with your computer. But W block, if you end up wanting to have a certain segment, when you type W block, it's called write block. And what it's doing is it's going to create a whole new file. And I can just say, call it something unique. I'd probably, well, save mapping. I can hit save. So that's what the new file is going to be named and the location is going to be at. The units, it can be either with a unit or without, as long as if you want the base point to be something different. Otherwise, I leave it as coordinate correct. I don't even touch the 00, the items that you have, or if you need the whole drawing. And then you can hit OK. Map information, a lot of times it's whether or not you had a coordinate system, also the units that are being applied. That could all be either added to that new drawing or not. Kind of by default, I start using yes. So that way your insert units, coordinate conversions, whatever it might be, is all there. Now, let me show you that file briefly. With me, desktop. I made that small area. So that file now that I clipped the upper part is less than 1 megabyte in size. Reason being is when I clip that, let me actually just open it for you. Size-wise in layers, by W blocking this, you are now taking out all unused layers, unused styles, all of that. So when I come over to my layer manager, only what is used, I can't really see the scroll bar. Actually, there is no scroll. Only these particular layers that are currently used. So if you end up having 250, 300 layers on average, this, whatever you used is what's left, including the line types. So it really makes smaller files and strips them down. The last one I wanted to mention on kind of cleanup, other just drafting. If you remember, I had mentioned that I made a block here or a square for trimming. If you do the oops command, OOPS, what it's going to do is, if that was my last erase, if you do make a block or an object, delete it. It's supposed to be whatever your last object that you had done. It's going to be the last. Just going to try to make a couple commands, moving some stuff around. If you do other things, you don't have to come back up to the drop down list and undo a few of the things that you don't have to go all the way down and undo all your work just to get something back if you needed it. But oops undoes the last erase that is available. With that, let's move on to the next little segment. Kind of labeled it as text, annotation, and dimensions. First one is, let's do find and replace. So under the annotate menu, find text. A lot of times I've had to just hand type in. I'm going to change the words here, find and replace, to make this an ampersand. Doesn't have to be capital correct and all that. It will recognize. And I have another one at a different spot too. Now, it can be the current space, or if you needed multiple tabs, you're changing something on the title block. You can also do the entire drawing. So if you had the wrong project number, the description of the project change, whatever it might be, this can be something that could be helpful just to change many, and not have to search around, especially if you did a spelling error or something on a property owner name, something like that. In this case, I'm just going to change that to find in an ampersand, find and replace. And you can do replace one at a time. You can even skip this one. If you do the next, I can skip the one that was previously on and choose which ones. So I changed, there's one that's over here. That's really small. If I changed 2 out of the 3, or you could just did replace all and took care of everything. Replaced all of them. So now you can see that had changed for me. Dimension lines. I didn't know about this previously, which I had. So if you have typical sections and you have 8 dimensions all lined up and you want them lined up vertically, there is on the annotate and come here to, I think it's a little ruler, adjust space. You click the base dimension. So let's just say I want all of them to be this top one, the same height. Now pick the other ones that you want to be the same elevation. At the bottom, the auto value, I enter 0, saying I want them all to be the same, being 0 different. You can enter something else. I haven't quite figured out auto for the benefit of it, but there you could stagger them if you needed to. I'm gonna enter 0, so they're all the same height, and done. So easy way if you have real typical sections and just trying to do some cleanup after the fact, you don't have to waste that effort up front to snap everything together. You can just do it in the end and make them all straight across. T-just, text justification is what it stands for. There's a nice way that you can modify the justification or attachment point of your text, and this could be global as well. Currently, the upper left is where this text block is. Now, if I wanted to keep this always aligned at this point on my dimension, or you had another reason that you wanted it just centered, I can make this change. I'm going to do it in properties first to show you that if you do it in here, it's going to shift based on the size of your text box. So I'm going to do top right. As you can see, it flies across the screen. But if I do T-just, and I wanted it, I don't know why, but if I wanted it to be it's top, middle, and bottom, and then left, center, right. So let's just say I wanted it to be bottom right, just to be opposite over here. The text didn't move, but now my placement is based on, it still keeps the same text window. So if you have masking behind it, the text didn't move, but it did transfer how it gets placed, the point of placement. And just to show you this one, the attachments are in the upper left, T-just, I'm gonna make them all bottom right. Text didn't move, but now my attachment points are in the bottom corners. Annotation labels, getting annotation on customizing it. Sometimes what you get out of the box is intended for more of a generic purpose, knowing that it's a great start. I ended up making this label out of just a single station offset label. Annotate on the screen, that would help. So I just went through and created a child to make this one. Take your pick on how, if you need to make child. With experience, easy to kind of find that out later on. But coming into the label style and edit, briefly what I kind of had done to make I ended up having 3 alignments here, just as the example. So I wanted station offset, I wanted the alignment description added to keep it straight as to what it is, the offset location and right or left, and then eventually I even added some surface information all in one label. The stock label had station offset and line. Give you a crash course on this one. A lot of it, when you're doing it, I usually have to go in and out of this label composer to format it and make things look the way I want it to. I can never do it the first time. But things to look for, in the layout tab, look for your anchor component. Is it on the feature, meaning the alignment or something like that? or this gives all the other labels that are currently there. So sometimes what I do is I'll just prioritize the very top one is the station offset, or the very first one. That one I want on the feature. But then once you come to line, the line itself is attached to the station offset label. And I added alignment 2, 3 surfaces. So 2, I also attached to the station offset label. So that way everything just moves as a group. And I can mess with the attachment point, what the new text, where that attachment point is, and a vertical offset or horizontal offset, whatever kind of works. Coding, uh, there's ways to kind of keep in mind all the different things you can get into. This particular label box was set for all the alignment type stuff. So alignment name, description, station, northing, eastings. And if you set one up and you know that you're going to be doing different alignments, you could also just copy and paste all this into another reference alignment text. And this is actually what you have options for: alignments, Cocoa points, parcels. I mean, you can see surfaces, all those. So if you need to make a custom label, that really helps. I've done this where I have a bridge going over another river, or I'm sorry, over another road, and I needed to make sure that there's enough vertical change to allow for a bridge, and needing to be at least 25 feet different between the profiles. I've created a label to know both stations and maybe surfaces or something like that, and see it all together. You can even change color formatting in the format part of it. I'm not going to get into that, so I don't dive into too much depth, but just knowing that there is some options on making some really cool labels, so I can just move that around. Currently it's 4 and 5, just to show you that it is dynamic. And I just made a flat surface, so the surfaces aren't really changing. Let's move on to modify and counting. Polylines wanted to, here's a straight polyline. If you needed to modify and you needed to add a bunch of vertices, you can do insert, and I can just click however I need to. Be helpful for boundaries, other things like that. Vice versa, if you needed to do delete, you can also help to simplify a line if you know that you're doing that. So here, whatever you're closest to on your cursor is what's going to get modified. Multiple command, if you have things like rotate and there's some other commands, but you can use the command multiple. And what it is just if a command already doesn't have the option to repeat, at least this, you could force this to start repeating. So I'm going to rotate these, then I'm going to rotate dimensions. The command is still active, and you can rotate, and you have to hit escape then to end the multiple command. Some options if you need to keep something going and stop going in and out of command all the time. Currently, or previously, I had some of that. See, I'm going to do a move command. I just selected 4 items, and I'm going to show you something called getting the previous selection. So now, if I want to do another move command and you selected a bunch of items, start your command, and on the command line, type P for previous, and it's still active for selecting objects. If I will go into the base point phase, what I already had selected prior is now re-selected, and I don't have to redo that. So let's just say you're doing all this here, and I'm doing a move. Having that previous command can really help. Or if you're setting up scripts later on, that can be very, very helpful. Block count, B count, very helpful. Street signs. I want to know how many single post signs, signs with double posts. In the command line, you can have a lot of different ones. This is how it's currently going to report in your command line. You could probably also do something, I believe there's options to get a list going for an XML report, but I found this is easy for quantities where you can window around the entire drawing, and as long as you're using set blocks, it'll give you a number at least. Lengthen, if you know that your turn bay needs to be a set length, this line is, let's see how far, currently 130 feet. Let's just say this needed to be 150 feet. Lengthen, I normally just use total, but you could do some other options. So I want this to be 150 feet, and the side that you click on is the side that's going to extend. I had to get it going into the total number. So the total length, I'm gonna enter that. And now it's 150 feet. I believe some of these commands are potentially retired or not, but total length, total area. I'm going to show you a little bit later on here a place that you can get some free list routines. But total length, let's just say I wanted all these white lines for payment markings. In the bottom, I have a total length for quantity reasons. And area, I can do the exact same thing where I have two green those blocks. T area is the command I'll show you in a little bit. But at least it gives me a total area based on square foot. Whatever your drawing units are set for area, that's how it's going to report it. And mine are currently based on square feet. P-edit, if you do have your P-edit's great for converting a lot of different items, arcs, lines, whatever it might be, to a polyline, but also you can use it to join things. And say these particular arcs here, you can do a P-edit. I have more than one, so I'm going to do multiple at the moment. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to convert them. And I'm going to show you something in a moment about this yes or no to convert. Join. I'm going to join these together. Now, join type is something that might be very helpful. Currently, it's set on extend. So if these circles don't overlap, they won't extend. But now you can either do add, meaning it's just going to connect the two vertices at the end, or you can do both where the computer is going to decide. I've seen multiple things for any reason to use. I know these are bigger circles for display reasons, so I'm going to do a bigger number. Now they are joined as one long line or one long chain. That could be pretty helpful. When I was mentioning about converting them to polylines, that little step, edit accept. If you change this one from 0 to 1, when you get this, exploded it, these are arcs again. Edit multiple. I'm going to convert those to polylines. It immediately skipped the yes or no, do you want to convert, and went right to the actual core content of that command. So p-edit accept, I kind of find it helpful just to ignore some steps. Copy base. You can right click, copy base, and if you need things to stay coordinate correct, a lot of times copy base, you can enter your 0 point. X, Y, you can ignore Z if you know it's 2D or something like that, or it won't be a problem for Z values. But now that's been copied into my clipboard as coordinate correct. You can also paste to the original coordinates, which then you can just do under Home tab. You think you can right click and get original coordinates as well. This should double up. You'll have the option to paste coordinate correct, especially if you're even doing it to another drawing. Wanted to show that to you, that if you have mapping files and you're copying this segment and you want to copy to another drawing, at least coordinate correct is helpful. Hatch to back. A couple commands that are very useful: hatch to back and text to front. Great for you're trying to do your draw order on things. Hatch to back is literally that. It will take drawing wide and send all those immediately to back underneath everything. Text to front can also include dimensions, annotation, leaders, and I think text. I believe it's all part of the command. It will actually prompt you saying if you want to include those items, but that will bring everything above so you don't have line work that blocks out any of your numbers or words. Break and break at point. Depends on if you're in 2023 or newer. Break at point is now its own command. Otherwise, 2022 and older, break at point was embedded in the break command itself. And so break, whenever you activate break, you can't usually keep it in one set spot. It's always going to create a gap. Now, if you do break at point, you can just choose one spot and it becomes two different entities. It splits them. That's been quite helpful to, especially when you're trimming and cleaning up stuff. Align command, I like the align command where if I want these red lines to be paired up, you can, it's a great way to have move, rotate, scale all in one. Align. So first point, I grab the object I want to move it to the next point, and I'm just going to grab someplace arbitrary, or if you know something else, if you need a certain size. I right-clicked, and now it's going to say there's also the option to go 3D, so the third location, which, I'm sorry, I had done that already, the third point right here. I had right-click, so I just ignored it. Now, do you want to scale? If you have these the way you want for size-wise, you can just say no, and it's just going to move it. If you did want to scale, wherever your second points were snapped could cause things to get bigger or smaller, whatever it might be. So there's definitely a use for it. Just depends on what your drafting needs are that time. So remember, please put any questions in the chat, and we can try to answer it as we go. But we're going to move on now to Layer Manager. A couple quick tips on Layer Manager. XREFs, a lot of times I like to put my XREFs on their own unique layer and lock them. And I'm going to show you a reason for that in a moment. Let me filter this. And in this case, I sometimes just to be organized, label it XREF, and then you can label the name or something. And I use the padlock here. So this area here, if let's just say I want to get rid of these additional lines that are in this drawing, not XREFs. Let's just do erase a locked layer. It actually will erase the lines you select that are not on a locked layer, but my XREF, because it was locked, it forcefully ignores it. And even match properties, your computer will run faster if you're trying to do a match properties. I don't know if I have any lines over here. I can do match properties faster that the XREF's on a locked layer. Otherwise, if it wasn't locked, the computer is going to try to process and figure out each and every item in your XREF to slow things down. So if you do move your XREFs to a locked layer, it can be helpful. Keep things running faster. Also, you can avoid any accidental shifts. It will always process and keep things out. If you do need to do a XREF clip and it's on a locked layer, it will not adjust. It's just, it'll keep giving you a prompt to run the command, but it won't ever complete it for you. You just need to unlock it if you ever need to run a clip. Take care of that, and if you can remember, try to lock it again if you think that there is the benefit of it, just to keep that going. Restoring XREF layers, or if you've changed an XREF layer, color, line type, something like that, you remove that filter. You can do one or many resetting layer properties. selected layers, or you can do all for the XREFs. You can choose what items you have. So if you did maybe change some colors in the original XREF file and you want those to all merge, you could just reset a lot of that here. And in this drawing specifically, at least will be up to current that way. Something else that's helpful, XREFs, and freezing a layer in a, let me show you. XREF, I'm gonna do X open to go in this layer. Is highly visible. Make it a color that show up. Let's make it even bigger. So I just made this change. I did not freeze the layer or freeze anything on it. So once I reload it, it's going to display. If you're at 90% of your project, almost getting close to completion, if you add something into some of your base files that you only want to show in just one file, erosion control, you want silt fence or something, you only want it to show there. But if that file is referenced in every single other plan sheet and you don't want it to show, there is another option that might help you to keep in mind. So if I'm going to create another layer, you make it current. So you can see a second line. I'm going to come in. You can't freeze the current layer, but I'm going to freeze this before I save my changes. I've made what I needed to. I froze it. Now I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go to my next drawing. Come back to it. I'm going to reload, and it's not displayed. So then if you have that only one drawing that you actually wanted it to show up in, go to that one drawing and you can turn it on. So I've found that helpful to save yourself a lot of headaches, especially if you have 30 drawings to make up your plan set. If you have a set by layer is another very helpful command where you're trying to control something as an XREF. I've just modified the properties on this one to be a different color, line type, some stuff like that. Let me show you in a moment here. I want that. I usually like to try to have as many objects in my drawing, all layer controlled, so it's just easier. You can do set by layer and choose which ones you want, color, line type, all of them, only one of them. You can hit OK. Select many items or just one item. Do you also want to change by block? Could be line types, might be a big reason for this, but you can choose yes or no on some of these. And if there's any blocks along with that selection cycling, you can do yes or no. But now this changed back to being controlled by layer and easier within references if you needed to make something gray or colored or black. Some additional settings for PDF benefit. If you do some of our PDFs, if you don't have this setting in a certain way, you may have AutoCAD text that is listed as a comment in PDFs when you build them. And if that's the case, you can change this PDF SHX. You can change that to 1, or you can change it to 0. Just kind of spot check what it is, and you can. I usually prefer to embed everything so it's less comments in my PDFs. With I think 2023 and newer, there's audits. Whenever you do an audit, there's an extra log file that can get created. If you do the audit control, as you can see in the little notes sheet, change it to 0 if you don't ever plan to look at those log files, which I never do personally. Otherwise, it's just another file that gets uploaded and takes up space. It's a small file though, so keep that in mind. The publish dialog box, next thing I wanted to mention, I brought up publish. In here, I If you can see, I don't have my layout tab or my model space tab that comes up automatically. If you end up right-clicking on any of the drawing names, you can have where it says include model space or don't include it. So I personally unchecked the box for including the model space. I usually don't want that, I never typically print it. I set up my sheets the way I want them. If you do uncheck that, it will apply your next CAD session after Civil 3D has been fully closed and you're given back in. That's when it, from then on, will actually apply. And whether or not you want the box check for automatically load all open drawings. If you commonly have a lot of drawings open, you may want to not have that checked to filter through. For, I'm going to do publish. I have my box checked for prompts to come up. I wanted to show you the next thing is shortcuts on the right side. Desktop, let's just say that was not there, but I wanted my desktop. You can, once you get to surf to your location that you want, you can right click on the side and add. Let's see, let's do a different one. So I want libraries. Should be able to do add. Normally the, trying to figure out why. Oh, because, okay, probably through the publish screen. Let's do this a different way. Open. Let's say I want my documents, or I can add the current folder, and you can do properties. The path is not, or the item name is not dependent upon your path. So if I want to call this folder, or I did by project names, I can do that, and then I always have my quick location. Now, once you make this once, it will show up in when you do a file open, in your publish, anything else, xrefs when you're trying to open an xref. I'm going to save that briefly. I'm going to show you that you can attach an xref, and then that file is now there too. So I can scroll right to it and get whatever files I need to reference. So let's publish dialog box. HP quick preview is I normally turn that one off. It's the hatch preview. So if you turn that off, your computer won't try to process every time that you're hovering over any closed area when you're trying to hatch. So only when you click does it actually process. And another way, your computer just has less to try to compute while it's running. Quick access toolbar at the top, upper left corner. I've customized mine, and I usually just left clicked on the down arrow. You can choose which ones you want. So if you want to have all these different ones, you can bring them in. I chose to get rid of certain ones that I never use, especially like web or mobile, if that's the case. I like to just keep things organized unless that I can accidentally hit and get into. Setting coordinate systems, there is the option to come up through your coordinates under drawing utilities, and I think it's drawing settings. In doing so, when you come in, you can try to assign coordinate systems here, but it doesn't give you the search options. Let me go back in for a moment. I wanted to clear that out. By the way, if you type period here, that will remove your coordinate system for you. But this, when you're trying to go through this option, you have to always filter through. If I know that I just have a certain county name that I wanted to type in, this way doesn't exactly do it real fast. You have to come down, and I would have to get your state and then your county and other factors like that. Another option is you start typing set CR, and it comes up with this ADE set coordinate system. And I set the coordinate system there. As you can see, it's loading. It takes a little bit longer now, but I'm in Dane County in Wisconsin. Do Dane in a space bar, and that's going to prioritize what county I'm in. And here's a bunch of additional ones. I can do like US survey feet if I wanted to select, and I didn't have to scroll through a bunch of different things to get that to come up. Then commands, I wanted to show another couple commands. If you want to change some of your settings on your computer, P for pan, I never usually use pan. I would rather have P for polyline. So if I wanted to make that change, you can come up to the manage and over to edit alias. This is going to bring up your AutoCAD PGP, which is programming type, just generic settings. At the top, you have some of your very basic, never to change things, delete, start, a couple things like that. As you get farther down, these are all AutoCAD common shortcuts on your command line and what they represent when you would bring them up. So shortcuts, call them that way. If you want to customize, it tells you at the very bottom, do it at the bottom, and it says that anything that's down here takes precedence over anything above. So for me, copy, I do more copy than I do circles. So I changed C to copy. I still gave something for circle, or I could do CIR. Break at point, if you're 2023 or newer, the command is already there for break at point. I decided to keep BR for break, and I just added an extra R. Sometimes I can't type, so I end up knowing that sometimes I do double Bs. I added my error shortcut as well in here just to have less headaches. P for polyline. Take your pick on all the different things that you would end up wanting. R, I did rotate instead of, I think it's redraw, which I don't use. Then when you do that, if you end up saving and closing, it won't immediately work. And did I put that in my list? Okay, I did. If you did make a change, you need to do reinitiate, which is, to get that to immediately fire up for you. Otherwise, the next CAD session will go. But REINIT will bring up a little dialog box. Check this for the PGP file that you just updated. Hit OK, and it will make it current so you can start using any of your custom commands immediately. I didn't say for a caveat, make sure that you look at if you want CC for circle, maybe type it on the command line and double check if anything comes up before you make these changes, just to make sure you're not accidentally overwriting something that could be important. Usually, most of us have been drafting long enough to know any of the Windows type things that we don't want to override, but just keep that in mind to kind of just double check some stuff. Mouse settings, I like to right click and it brings up my most recent command. But if you come to options and then user settings, you do have right click options that can be available. I have mine set to nothing's selected, repeat. If something is selected, shortcut menu to either copy, paste, whatever else it might be. And if it's farther in a progress, I can actually have my right click to be an enter, so I don't have to have my hands on the keyboard potentially. But options just to keep you going. List routines. So now I'm going to show you a couple, hopefully very, very basic things to kind of scratch the surface on if you like to do tangent radius with a circle. So the current way, it's circle, and at the bottom, tangent radius. If you're not doing a fillet command, you can click your couple points, and it's already now to the radius. So 50. I built as you can see on the cheat sheet, I showed you some of the coding. So if you end up bringing up Notepad, and you can copy and paste those into your Notepad. Bring up my copy. So as a list routine, most of the list routines are literally Notepad files that's then got the last designation changed from a notepad to an LSP, but it is still just very, very generic text. And giving you a crash course from somebody that is also still very much learning a lot of this stuff, defunc will be the function that you're going to be doing. C:, think of the old DOS programming stuff, C drive, : or the command itself is what you're going to be doing. I named mine TTR for the tangent radius, just because that's what my mind works as. You might be able to come up with different keys for whatever kind of works for you. And then the parentheses here, open, close. What that is going to say whatever is going to be in the parentheses here is what it gets put into to make that command going. So with the I've typically found some other basic scripts that other people have wrote, and I literally plug and chug with what I want. I changed the TTR for whatever calls up the command, and then somebody already had wrote, hey, command and quote marks, leave some of these space bars because they're needed for how the program will kind of run, to know that you're moving from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. But somebody gave me some of these, or gave some of the basic formatting, and I added what I want. So I wanted circle, and then there's a space bar to say that's almost like your enter. You started circle, and then on the command line, it automatically enters TTR for me, and then that is the end of that's where the custom command will pause, if you want to call it that way, not necessarily just stop, but then I can enter my radius and click on the different parts of the lines. So here I would be clicking on each end to make my circle. You can see pretty much something very similar for the break at point. If you're looking at the agenda for the handout, I called BB. That's the letters I wanted to use to call it up. And this was pre-2023. You can see the dot break, and there was a pause. Some of that I had to learn online by doing some forum searches, but then I found some of the additional things that were needed to kind of help with the prompts. If you look at the one that copied with base point, if you do a lot of copy with base points and you always want the 00 as your origin, you can make that copy and you have it pre or default to already include the 00. So after you've copied the items, the command is over with. Everything's already to your clipboard, and you can just go to your receiving drawing and paste. It only saves you like a second or two, but maybe if you do this a lot, a second or two may add up to be in minutes or even a lot more over the course of time. One more thing I'm going to show you is the quick select, and then I'm going to try to open it up for any questions, or hopefully you're sharing any tips and tricks along the way. It's always great having anybody share tips and tricks, and every day I learn something new. Quick select, I use this one a lot to help to filter out either entire drawing, or if I had something else selected, it would say the current selection. Multiple, it will give you whatever options are either in your current selection, or in this case, everything that's been in my drawing here. So if I wanted to find all circles, if you have some that are not by layer or certain colors, I'm just going to do select all. And you can include, exclude, amend, but ways to really, if you're trying to clean up drawings, this could be very helpful. So I just picked up all circles. I can't remember how many. So there's 257 circles in this drawing, but quick select is a great way to filter out and find things throughout your drawing. Either if you need to edit by layer status, if you needed to get all your tree blocks and you needed to scale them up, maybe you find them and move them off to the side, because you can actually filter where I need to have all either manholes, tree blocks, whatever it might be. You can grab every single one that's in your drawing and move them, rotate them, change colors, change scale, whatever it might be. With that, thank you for your time, and I'm going to try to open it up for questions and see if we can help with anything else. Thanks. Have a great day.